if indeed the Social Democrats get unseated by the AfD here, it is a huge problem for Olaf Scholz. It could indeed, nail his political coffin as we head towards the general elections, excuse me, in Germany, which are just 1 year away.
Well, joining us now is former CNN Europe editor Nina Dos Santos. Nina, good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Alexis.
From what I can see, they are in the lead in Brandenburg, which is sort of the area of Germany that surrounds Berlin, the northeastern part of Germany. They're 28 points, and they seem to be in the lead. Is this going to be yet another blow for Olaf Scholz and his government?
Well, it's looking very tense here in the state of Brandenburg, which, by the way, Alexis, in terms of population, at first glance doesn't seem hugely consequential. It's not hugely populated. But the issue is that this is a Social Democrat stronghold. It's a state, the only state indeed in East Germany that the Social Democrats have held all the way since the reunification of Germany in 1990. So if indeed the Social Democrats get unseated by the AfD here, it is a huge problem for Olaf Scholz. It could indeed, nail his political coffin as we head towards the general elections, excuse me, in Germany, which are just 1 year away. As you rightly said, the polls are quite tight. There's somewhere between a 1% and 3% lead for the AfD based on polling this week. It looks as though they might clinch 28% of the vote, so that means they'd be 1% ahead of the Social Democrats. And there could also be a collapse in support for many of the other more traditional and smaller parties that have also made up the state legislature as well. And that could upset the apple cart further.
Nina, do we know what is driving the vote? Is it the youth, as we've been told, the AfD being very popular amongst younger people? Is it the older generation, perhaps, that grew up in East Germany when Brandenburg was that big part of East Germany? Where does the AfD stronghold remain in Brandenburg?
Well, it's changed quite a bit. So as I was saying before, Brandenburg is quite a sort of disparate place, really, in terms of sort of its electoral makeup. You've got some what are now affluent suburbs of Berlin, the German capital, that, yes, may have been behind the Iron Curtain a generation or so ago, but are no longer. You've got sort of people who have retired to the lakes nearby, and then you've got agricultural voters as well, extremely irritated by new green initiatives with this traffic light coalition that Olaf Scholz is the head of, that also includes, a very big green voice indeed. So you've got a lot of people united voting for the AfD, possibly voting for the AfD this weekend, who are united on issues, environmental issues, to push back on those net zero initiatives. And also they hate wind turbines in particular. The local leader there of the AfD party has, made this one of his key local campaign issues. And as you'd imagine, immigration very much in the forefront of lots of AfD voters' minds in this part of Germany. But what you're also seeing, just like in Thuringia and also in Saxony, where the AfD did very well just 3 weeks ago, is the fact that this is no longer old people voting for the far right. Lots of the people who may well vote for the AfD in these elections are voting for the very first time. And there's lots of people coming to the electoral for able to vote in the next 2 or 3 years who are already 15 years old and say, I will be voting for that party. Indeed, what we've seen is fresh from his electoral victory in Thuringia, Björn Höcke, the leader of the AfD there, has been on the campaign trail in Brandenburg in the last few days, holding rallies to try and drum up support for the AfD in this part of Germany and saying, look at the age among the crowd. You are young. This is no longer the party of older people, which is where the traditional support was.
Yeah, it's really fascinating. I confess I spent my summer this year in Brandenburg, just between Berlin and Hamburg, and every little village, I mean, it's beautiful. You've got wonderful forests, rivers, lakes, really a beautiful part of Germany. But every village had some sort of poster up against wind turbines. The local people feel that they're hugely damaging to the environment because they have to, in order for them to be installed, you have to give access to really large machinery, and they feel that the forests and the natural world is not being protected. Nina, what about the extreme left, the BSW party? They seem to have had a lot of traction. Might they be taking votes away from the SPD and the CDU?
Well, what's really interesting here is you're rightly pointing out that essentially those traditional mainstream parties in Germany are finding themselves in a pincer grip between two different parties that have very different views on some things, but largely united on the issue of potentially redistributive economics. That's something that it really annoys young people in Germany, feeling that life will not get better. They're united on whether or not, or basically not to support Ukraine as much in its war as Germany has, and German support's been pivotal. And they're also united on issues of immigration, tackling immigration. And all of this is creating this pincer grip, which isn't just removing votes from the traditional parties like the Social Democrats, but also previously, other big, powerful parties that were in power like the CDU. What we're also seeing is that they are steering the political debates to encourage the current government to take actions that we've never really seen before. Like, for instance, you may remember a couple of weeks ago, Germany suddenly announced that unilaterally it was going to impose checks on all of its borders,
Yeah.
wrong-footing many of its Western neighbors, like France and other countries like the Netherlands, that said they weren't previously consulted. And what that's done is that's emboldened far-right parties in places like the Netherlands now to say, well, we don't want to uphold Schengen either. So, as I said before, we're 1 year away from an election. We know that the centre-right party of the CDU, Friedrich Merz, the leader of that party, appears to be doing quite well in national polling. And all of this will just continue to put huge pressure on Olaf Scholz. If he loses Brandenburg, what might happen is his party might revolt against him and try and find another leader for that 2025 election.
Will be fascinating to see as Brandenburg heads to the polls tomorrow. Nina, as always, thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Nina Dos Santos, their former CNN Europe editor. And also, I should tell you that according to the polls, 27% of Brandenburg are still undecided. So there's still a lot to play for that election tomorrow.